ready?
Oh, is it 7?
6.
Brian? Are we ready? Sorry. All right, let's call this meeting to order. It is 6 o'clock on Wednesday, October 4th, 2023. This is the regularly scheduled board meeting of the Truckee Donner PUD. Shauna, can we have roll call, please?
Thank you. Director Finn?
Here.
Director Aguirre?
Here.
Vice President Liliotis?
Here.
The record will reflect that President Bender and Director Harris are absent.
Okay. Joe, hey, you're going to lead us in the pledge tonight
All righty.
Welcome back.
because we missed you so much.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Brian, any changes to the agenda tonight?
Hey, when is this thing on? The slide's on, right?
The switch and the light.
It's on. Kids.
I'm sorry, President, or Vice President Liliotis,
Any changes to the agenda?
not this evening.
Excellent. All right. Public comment. This time set aside for the public to address the board on any matter not on the agenda. Testimony related to any agendized matter should be addressed at that time that the item is considered. So, do we have any public comment today?
But
Mr. Vice President, can we hold off on public comment until later in the agenda
Sure.
and get district council versus opinion?
Yes. All right, we will hold public comment in advance, and we will move on to director updates.
Great. I do have a direct update. Good evening, everybody. Happy to be here. My update is that I attended the Nevada County Sustainability Summit last Wednesday. Brian was there for the morning session. It was very interesting. We had, all sorts of folks from up and down Nevada County coming in to share the sorts of things that they're doing to help make our region more sustainable. Some of the big takeaways were there's a real large focus now on nature-based solutions because they're so cost-effective and effective, period, and also cost-effective. And that we're moving sort of a cultural shift from growth to restoration, which we're seeing in our forest work, for example. And one really interesting panel that Teal Zimring and Zach Knight, those were the two folks on it, and I can't remember. I know Teal personally, but I can't remember what she was there as a representative of. But anyway, they had a very rich discussion about financing and funding and sort of what the difference between financing, and it stuck in my head, financing unlocks funding, which is what gets your projects on the ground. And I thought, okay, that's a neat way to think about it, because I have never thought too deeply, actually, on the differences between financing and funding. So anyway, it was a really well-spent day for me, and it was beautiful, and I was happy to have had a chance to learn from so many smart people. And that is my update this evening. Thank you.
Joe, any updates?
I have nothing today. I didn't go to any meetings. Thank you, President.
All right. I have no updates as well, so. We will move on to the consent calendar. We have item 8. Consideration to dispense competitive bidding and negotiate directly for vendors for fiscal year '23, procurement of a new electric line crew UTV. Is there any public comment on the consent calendar? All right.
After this, should we go back and let Brian do his comment?
Oh, did I miss general manager update?
I think
Oh, sorry.
that's okay, we can,
I
let's
apologize.
close this out and then
Yeah.
go back. I move that we approve the consent calendar.
And I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Donna, roll call, please.
Thank you. Director Aguirre?
Yes.
Director Finn?
Yes.
Vice President Flores?
Yes. All right, we will step back to item 7. Sorry, Brian.
What's that?
I said, sorry, Brian, we'll step back to item 7.
Oh, for the department updates.
Yes.
So I do have a few for you this evening. A lot of work going on with the district, a lot of construction work. Wanted to give the board and the community a couple of updates. First, wanted to, I think a lot of people are aware of the fact that the board has taken on the project of updating our strategic plan for the coming years, and wanted to thank the community members that participated in the community circles over the last several weeks. A lot of great information, a lot of great feedback, some really impressive high-level discussions on strategic issues that this community faces. And so staff is compiling that information, that data that we acquired during those community circles, and some of the feedback and direct kind of comments and encouragement on some of these strategic initiatives. And we're going to present that in a formal report in the very near future to the community and those participants. A couple of other items. Thank you, Director Finn. I had an enjoyable time at the Sustainability Summit. That was a great discussion. A lot of really exciting topics and great minds that attended that with some really innovative goals for our community in the future there. This week, the district hosted the California State Wildfire Safety Advisory Board, WASB. We hosted a tour here. They convened here at the district. Members of their board and members of their staff joined some of our staff, members of CMUA, members of NCPA, members of California Fire Service, CAL FIRE, joined here first at the district to talk about the concepts of publicly owned utilities and their roles and protocols or measures to mitigate wildfire in their systems. And so we talked a lot about the work that PUD has done, had some discussions about our strategic plan update in evaluating the undergrounding initiative that has evolved to safety and wildfire mitigation. We talked a lot about this board's direction to staff and investment in concepts like vegetation management, circuit reclosures, pole replacements, all the work that we've done over the last several decades. And kind of the message there was that this community is very aware and cognizant of the fact of wildfire risk, but this district has invested heavily, and so has some of our other public partners. So it was a great meeting. That board also got a chance to tour our system a little bit to see some of the work we've done, and we got a lot of really good positive feedback. I think the underlying goal of that board is to kind of seek to understand what our challenges are at the public utility level, some of the smaller and mid-level utilities. Clearly there's a financial concern, the cost of some of these mitigating measures, but what's the best for our communities? And then really facilitating the discussions across other utilities in California. So it was a great first step for us to get to know that board, establish some relationships, but also have some early communication on what our plans are in the future.
When was that meeting, Brian?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
When was the meeting?
It was on Monday.
Oh, last week?
Yeah, 2 days ago.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so we met Monday. We broke it into two groups. Really want to thank NCPA and CMUA for coordinating it, but it was a great meeting with that Wildfire Advisory Safety Board. Couple of other updates. The district is still engaged with HDR Engineering to finalize our electric cost of service and utility rate study. And so staff will be presenting with Sean Korn from HDR at the next board meeting, some of the findings through our cost of service analysis and some, give an opportunity for the board to review and evaluate a couple different rate models that we can utilize moving forward. Something that's coming up in the next couple of weeks, staff will be attending the UAMP Strategic Board Retreat in mid-October. I think I mentioned this before, and definitely we discussed it when UAMPS was here for their presentation. UAMPS, like the district, is also participating in an IRP. And so in October, they're going to have an opportunity for representatives from each of their membership agencies to review that IRP and really have some strategic discussions on what their power procurement goals will be over the coming years. So as we mentioned, we're in the process right now with Aspen Engineering, looking for that product and report to be out soon. But the district isn't the only one engaged in that process. And so even our power pool schedulers are doing the same thing. And so we'll report back what we learned in that retreat, and also looking for an opportunity for UAMPS to return and give the board a more detailed presentation on UAMPS plans moving forward. On the water utility side, one of the updates that we included in the staff report was that, everyone sees the cooling temperatures, and we had a lot of rain or precipitation over the last several weeks. And so it's not that summer's completely over. The season itself is over, but the warm weather may still be around a little bit. But we've seen a pretty measurable drop in water use. So our peak summer demand has finally curtailed for the rest of the year. We saw just under 7 million gallons a day as our peak demand in July. We're back down under 5 million gallons a day. So we're entering back into that fall and winter water demand cycle. I want to take a moment to kind of celebrate and congratulate our staff on the amount of work they've done this summer in terms of construction. Really, the water department has taken on a really productive construction season that turned out to be really short as well. And so getting a lot done in a short amount of time really, taxed our resources in terms of availability to make sure that inspections were happening, and project management and scheduling and resources and supply chains. And so we had a lot of projects going on, both contracted, third-party contractors and internally. And I just want to kind of celebrate a couple of those that are really quite remarkable for a staff as small as ours, a utility as small as ours, that's taken on this number of projects. So the Round Hill Tank Rehab project was finished earlier this summer. The 6170B, or number 2 storage tank, is moving along quite quickly in terms of its construction. And next board meeting, we'll have some photos on that kind of progress and time lapse through a couple of those projects. But they're in the last week or so of welding to get that steel up, the roof up. In one short summer season, that tank went up relatively quickly for a 2.5 million gallon welded steel tank. And again, this project's going to be extremely valuable for the district's service reliability and fire flow storage. With that project also, there was included a Pioneer pipeline and pump station. Those are moving along very quickly. The pipeline project is essentially done with some final paving being completed. The pump station, the building's up, a lot of the electrical's in, the pumps are in. We're working on the switchgear and final SCADA components, but that project is moving on quickly, and we're hoping before next summer to have that project fired up.
Brian, where is that pump house there? At Pioneer Center?
So just behind, if you go between Stone Tire and the TNT concrete batch facility,
There, yeah.
that little road that goes up the hill, it's
Okay.
right there.
That goes up to the tank, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So those projects were kind of combined. There was a tank, a pump station, and a pipeline.
And the pump station at the base of the road?
Correct, just around the corner. So it's just out of view from Trails End there, or Pioneer, but around the corner behind the concrete batch station. And so in the staff report, or the department reports, included in the agenda packet. You can see some photos of where that building is moving along. Those are a little bit dated, but we're moving quickly with the tank and the pump station. Another big project that we completed internally was the Glenshire Master Meter Project. And this was important in terms of our water loss reduction plans, our long-term goals for water loss reduction. Master meters are essentially these large kind of transmission scale meters on the water system where we can track water as it goes into subdivisions. And it helps us really isolate or narrow down where water loss is occurring and where water deliveries are going at any point in time in the system. And so that was something we've been planning for several years, and the crew were able to get that project in with a new vault and new meter. We also have not just the new capital projects, but the pipeline replacement projects. The Glenshire pipeline replacement's closing out now, a couple paving components still left this week. The Ski Run pipeline replacement's still underway. It will probably go into next year, but they're substantially complete for the summer. And so, again, there's a lot of projects there, a lot of investment in time, preparation, engineering, and then boots on the ground. So I really want to applaud the water department for the amount of work they did this summer. Kind of a nice feel-good moment for the water side is that next week is the California Water Professionals Appreciation Week. And so in partnership with a couple of other local agencies, TTSA and TSD, this district is engaging in a couple activities to celebrate, as I mentioned, all the work they do and the success we've had here locally in terms of our water and wastewater professionals in the Truckee service area. So as you see your water professionals out there over the next week, thank them for the work they do. On the political forum, the district submitted a letter to Governor Newsom's office in support of AB 1594. This again is continuing the great work we've done so far with our partners in making efforts to ensure that the Advanced Clean Fleet Rule from CARB addresses some of the needs of utilities in our geographical area or in kind of our size and operation. And so this letter is hopefully an effort and successful effort in getting the governor to sign this bill that allows CARB to take some special considerations for utilities in terms of commercial availability and replacement for our vehicles into the Advanced Clean Fleet zero emission vehicles. So I had a sidebar discussion with CMUA representatives, their general manager, CEO, Barry Moline, and Patrick, who works a lot side by side with our own Stephen Poncelet on this project. And it was really nice to hear that CMUA has given such great commendation, kudos to the effort that the PUD, Truckee Downer PUD, has had in this particular legislation, and that it's actually moved the needle, the work we've done. And it wasn't just us, but I do want to acknowledge the work that Stephen Poncelet has done with our local partners across the North Tahoe Basin and our JPA and advocacy with CMUA and NCPA. A little utility like Truckee Downer PUD can make a difference at the Capitol, and that's important to remember. And I think I'll pause there. The rest of the updates are in the staff report. I just wanted to kind of speak out on a couple of those to give special consideration for those. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Brian. All right, let's move on to action item number 9, consideration of contract amendment with construction materials engineers, perform construction inspection in 2023.
Good evening. This is action item number 9, consideration of a contract amendment with construction materials engineers to perform construction inspection. Since 2015, the Water Department has used outside consultants to inspect various developer-funded and district-funded projects. Most recently, in January of 2021, a request for proposals to perform construction inspection services was issued. 6 proposals were received in response to that RFP, and through that process, a contract was awarded to Construction Materials Engineers, CME, at the April 7, 2021 board meeting. The contract with CME was renewed for 2022 and 2023 as part of the annual procurement process. Expenditures with CME for construction inspection for the last couple of years are outlined here. For 2021, it was just under $128,000. For 2022, just under $189,000. And this basically involved one inspector on a full-time basis for the construction season, and there was some additional part-time support as needed, but didn't happen all that often. For 2023, it was recognized that additional inspection efforts would be required. We had 5 significant Water Department capital projects. They're outlined here. General Manager Wright kind of just touched on them earlier. And so in recognition of that, the authorization for an expenditure of $300,000 with CME was approved at the December 7, 2022 board meeting. And again, that was part of the annual procurement process. To date, expenditures with CME for 2023 total about $220,000, and that covers the inspection work through August of this year. So we still are awaiting the bill for September, and then we have additional expenses for October. And we have essentially had 2 full-time inspectors on the district projects all summer. And in addition, we have had some work by contractors on Saturday throughout the month of September as they're working to try and complete projects before the construction season ends. So we're expecting that the original authorization of $300,000 is going to be exceeded. An additional authorization of $150,000 is recommended, and that would be a total authorization of $450,000. We do expect that construction inspection expenditures for 2024 will be significantly lower. A number of these projects are going to be wrapping up, and we're anticipating a lower capital expenditures for next year. In terms of fiscal impact, sufficient funds exist in the contingency amounts for each of the capital projects to cover the additional construction inspection costs. To date, about 1% of the project contingency amounts have been spent. And in addition, the Water Department also has a sufficient reserve fund of about $6.2 million if the project contingency amounts were to be exhausted. So the recommendation before you is to authorize the general manager to execute a contract amendment with Construction and Materials Engineers to perform construction inspection services for an additional amount of $150,000 and a new not-to-exceed total contract amount of $450,000 for calendar year 2023.
All right. Thank you, Neil. Is there any public comment on item number 9?
No, Mr. Vice President.
All right, thank you. Any director comments on number 9?
No, I'm just happy to see the work moving along at pace, and of course, we need to pay for inspections, so thank you for your information, updates.
So Neil, the only, we have to do is just approve $150,000 on tonight's vote.
We're requesting authorization for an additional $150,000,
Yeah.
which we believe will carry us through the end of the calendar year.
I move that we approve this amount.
Are you moving staff's recommendation?
Pardon?
Are you moving staff's recommendation?
Yes, and moving recommendation.
I will second that motion.
Great. Sean, a roll call, please.
Director Aguirre?
Yes.
Director Finn?
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, workshop. Number 10, residential electrification survey results. Let's see what the community had to say.
All right, good evening, Vice President Laliotis, members of the board. Happy to be back with another workshop, although this one's starting a little bit earlier in the evening. I'll be presenting some results from a recent survey that staff have executed with our residential customers on not only their perspectives towards and intentions, purchasing intentions towards electrification, but also to collect information about the existing residential building stock. Starting off with a little bit of context for the what the impetus for this survey was. The district has a long and prosperous history of conservation programs, very successful conservation programs. In fact, so successful that a lot of the equipment, the measures that we would provide rebates for are pretty much, installed now in our community. And I've spoken previously about our programs and the reboot of our programs post-COVID and some of the considerations that went into that, bringing in some electrification measures to everything. But a lot of that was also designed in the absence of a lot of rigorous data about the building stock that we have here in Truckee. And so the survey was designed to collect that missing information to help inform the programs that we're designing. So we contracted with a consultant, ADM Associates, to execute the survey for us and collected information on home characteristics, the types of equipment they have currently installed, as well as their our customers' purchasing expectations and their perspectives on certain pieces of electrification measures that the district is currently does have rebates for, but also measures that we might consider. Before jumping into the survey itself, I thought it might be helpful to just kind of talk through some of the ways that a home uses energy, because the ultimate purpose of our rebate programs is to one, conserve energy and in the form of electricity, and two, to reduce carbon emissions, and to reduce those carbon emissions through reductions in energy use or conversion from carbon-intense energy sources to less carbon-intense energy sources. And the rebates are geared to try and transform the market to accelerate adoption of more efficient and cleaner technologies. So a lot of programs are traditionally focused on widgets or technology devices that are going to either be more efficient or cleaner. And I pulled data from the EIA, Energy Information Administration, and this is kind of a national average for residential home, just to look at the different end uses of places where a home uses energy and their relative proportions. What parts of the home use more energy relative to other parts of the home, you can see in the graph there, space heating dominates. followed by water heating, and then air conditioning. And granted, that graph would look different in LA or Central Valley relative to somewhere else. But up here in Truckee, it's actually pretty accurate. Our homes up here, certainly, I think everyone here has the experience of seeing their heating bills and seeing how much energy they put into heating every winter. Although we do have some new sources coming online with electric vehicles, adding load, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But fundamentally, our homes are designed to provide a safe and habitable climate for its resident, right, at the fundamental level, and to support the activities needed. At a basic level, that would be maintaining life, food, storage, food prep, et cetera, but also these days work from home, and then other various hobbies. If your kids have computers like mine do now, that can start adding up as well. One thing that is not discussed as much are the occupant behaviors or decisions that are made in the home relative to how energy is being used. A lot of programs are focused on the widgets and not on how those widgets are being used. And what I've pulled here, this is some energy use history from a customer that, a house in our territory. And what's kind of interesting is that for the first 2 years, 2020 and 2021, it's got one set of occupants. And then for 2022 and 2023, it's got a completely different set of occupants. The only thing that's changed are the occupants in the home. Nothing else has changed. And you can see some stark differences in the energy use patterns in between those two different occupants. Same home, same everything else. The biggest difference there is just the behavior of the occupants inside of the home. That just is a small demonstration of the importance of occupant behaviors and decision-making when it comes to energy use. It's arguably as or potentially more important, more significant than the widgets or the technologies themselves. So now jumping into the survey itself. We sent out email, we conducted the survey via email, sent emails to 9,700 residential customers, and we received responses from just under 1,000 of them, so about a 10% response rate, which is about what we were expecting going into this survey. It's pretty standard response rate for surveys of this nature. We didn't see a significant difference in our response rates across between secondary and primary residents. A little bit more response from primary residents than secondary, but pretty even there. The one thing to note, though, is that the data, we did collect demographic data, so we understood the applicability of the results. And, we saw that while the survey data, the results that we're presenting here tonight are really good at representing owner, single-family occupied homes and second homes, it does not necessarily represent the rental market. So that would be a piece of context as we go through this data. The results have been summarized for everyone in the categories listed there above, and there's a lot. I mean, the report was attached in the staff report. There's a lot of numbers, a lot of data in there for a great evening read, and I'm happy to dive into anything that you guys might have questions on. I tried to summarize as best as I could the takeaways in those broad categories for the presentation tonight, and feel free to stop and ask questions if there's anything in any of these categories that are of particular interest. So we're going to start with home envelopes, or the exterior shell of the home. So that would include walls, windows, doors, etc., the skin of the home, everything that separates you from Mother Nature outside. What we found in terms of key takeaways here is actually the majority of windows in Truckee are double pane, which maybe not be super surprising. The average age of construction, year of construction for the homes were found to be about 1988. So double pane windows make sense for that time frame, although around then, the double pane windows were pretty fresh technology, and they were tended to be aluminum frame with pretty rough thermal breaks, and so they didn't age well. And you can see down below that a lot of people are reporting leaks, air leaks and draftiness in their homes across all elements, windows, walls, and doors. Less so the walls. So we noted that there's definitely some opportunity there to address the draftiness of the homes and improve the comfort there. A little bit of history. Our conservation programs have, because they are funded by the customer rates, they can only be spent specifically to conserve electricity. And because the vast majority of heating in our service territory is natural gas, we've not been able to spend a lot of money on windows and similar improvements because those would go towards conserving gas and not electricity in the home. Something that we are expecting to change, to shift as heat pumps become more popular. That opens up an opportunity for us to start spending some of those funds on these. Moving on to heating equipment. It's not surprising that the majority, 80% of respondents indicated that they had natural gas as their primary heat source, followed by wood and electricity. The most common secondary heating source were wood stoves. A lot of that's kind of confirming what we would have otherwise expected, which is also helpful to put numbers to what we already kind of assumed to know, but to give us some firm justification, some actual numbers behind it. It helps us to move forward. What kind of stood out to me here is that the average age of existing heating equipment is pretty old. HVAC equipment in general tends to last 15 to 20 years is kind of the expected life cycle for it. A lot of people keep it going up to 30 plus years, but that 14 to 30 years is kind of the end of life for HVAC equipment, furnaces and air conditioners. So what we're seeing here is that there's a fair amount of equipment that's ready to be replaced in the service territory. So there's an opportunity to get ahead of that there. We collected information on thermostat set points for just to inform how people again are using their equipment. That would be kind of a behavioral component there. Are they setting reasonable temperatures or not? Are they like my kids and like to just crank up the thermostat in the morning just to feel warm? Or are they setting it back? The recommended, it used to be the federal recommended was 68 degrees for heating. And we can see that our residents are actually sit on average below that, which is fairly responsible. Moving on to cooling equipment. Cooling equipment, not a lot of it here in Truckee, but 15% of our customers have air conditioning. That's mechanical air conditioning. And then, a good chunk of them have some sort of like mechanical fan sort of ventilation with the rest of people just using their windows. I think the thing to pull out here is that if you look at the age of the equipment, it averages towards the younger side. And, that kind of aligns with our expectations that air conditioning being installed is a more recent phenomenon. Wildfires and the need to cool our homes when the Truckee region is inundated with wildfire smoke, drives. I think it's starting to drive people to get some air conditioning. Hotter temperatures in the summer are starting to drive people to get air conditioning, et cetera. And then there are a number of people, right now it's only 2% that have air conditioning by virtue of having heat pumps. And that's something that we're going to see grow as heat pumps become more common. People are going to purchase it for heating, but then they're going to find out, hey, I can use this in the summer and I can cool my house with it. So there's going to be some byproduct there. Onto water heating. Again, water heating, the vast majority of water heating in Truckee is done by natural gas, followed by electric resistance, and then there's 2% penetration of heat pump hot water heaters. The age, again, is older, although not as old as the heating equipment. It kind of sits in that 4 to 13 year range as well. So it's a little bit younger, but there's still a good chunk of equipment that's ready to be replaced, coming up pretty soon here. Most people have tank hot water heaters. 77% reported having tank, with only 20% having tankless hot water heaters. And one thing that really jumped out to me, which it surprised me, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around this, is that 69% of people reported having low flow shower heads across all of their showers. And I know that every event that I've ever gone to, nobody wants the low flow shower heads that I'm trying to give away. So I was encouraged by that number. And then 11% have them installed in some portion. I'm guessing they put those in the guest rooms because it's like,
That bad.
I'm one of the 69%.
Yeah, me too. I think we must all have low flow shower heads, right?
I use theirs.
Yeah, it's a prerequisite to being on the board. It's 100%.
exactly.
I use ours, and then every time I take a shower, I wonder if it's about the same amount of water coming out of the other shower heads. It looks like it is,
Right?
yeah. So I am saving water, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
good boy.
They're good. So we also asked questions about appliances, and this went from washers, dryers, to refrigerators, freezers, dishwashers, et cetera, cooking appliances as well. We'll start with cooking. So on the cooking appliance side of things, again, the majority of cooking is done using natural gas, though, what was it, 20, I don't have that number on here, do I? No, it's right there. 28% of customers have electric cooking, and of those 20%, almost a quarter, have induction cooking for their cooktops. And then an additional 23% of customers that don't have induction cooking indicated that they'd be interested in it. They don't have it, but they'd like to explore it. They're open to that technology. When it comes to the rest of the appliances there on the right, we looked at the age and the efficiency of those appliances, and focused on kind of the efficiency. And one of the telltales there is it Energy Star labeled. That's kind of a divider there across appliances. And the vast majority of appliances were found to be Energy Star labeled. And then I've got a little kind of zoom in there on the refrigerator one, and that the trend shown there is actually the same across all of the appliances. And that's if we look at recent appliances. So down below that's appliances at any age. In that zoom in, that's just looking at refrigerators that are 10 years or less. You can see that Energy Star it becomes 72%, right? It's the vast majority, and it turns out that basically when people are buying new appliances, they're Energy Star appliances. And that's what we were seeing in the rebate applications that were coming in when we had Energy Star appliance rebates. People were applying for the rebates after they'd purchased the appliance, and then they'd found out about the rebate program, and they were like, oh, this is great. We're like, well, this isn't very market transformational anymore, this rebate, because they found out about it after they purchased it. And this kind of confirms what we were seeing there, and that is one of the reasons why we decided to discontinue that particular rebate in this last year, is that the market's already doing its thing. It doesn't need that extra impetus anymore. All right, electric vehicles. This was an interesting one. So 18% of our customers reported having one or more electric vehicles, which is pretty good. I was actually just listening to a presentation this afternoon from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. They've put together a model for transportation electrification forecasting and load forecasting. And they noted in that model that California has the highest penetration of EVs, and its market share for EVs in California is about 25%. So we're sitting just below that market share, which is pretty impressive for a tiny little community, right? And then another number that really stuck out is that almost 41% of respondents indicated that they plan on purchasing an electric vehicle in the near future for the next purchase. In fact, so and that could be anywhere between the next year, or it could be 5 or more years. We kind of gave them a couple of different ranges that they could report in. But I think the takeaway there is that it's coming. A lot of people have plans to purchase electric vehicles. The plot down below isn't entirely straightforward to look at, but we collected information about number of vehicles that people own, and then the types of fuel sources for those vehicles. So, if we look down at the plot down below, you see 1, 2, and 3 plus. That would be the number of vehicles. So, 46% of people reporting having one vehicle have a gas vehicle. 15% of people with one vehicle report having an EV. And then we can move up to 2 vehicles or 3 vehicles. So one of the things that we'd seen earlier today was that it's interesting just that people with one vehicle tend to have EVs more than people with multiple vehicles. In addition to just kind of specifics about the cars, the types of vehicles people own, we asked about our customers' perspectives on some factors that typically prevent or make it more difficult for people to purchase an EV, kind of sticking points with adopting electric vehicles. That includes driving range, the availability of chargers, so range anxiety related, the cost of the purchase. EVs are not cheap, and then the availability of incentives to help with those costs. And the way we asked the questions, we provided a scale with 1 being that this is insignificant and 5 meaning that this is very significant. And so this little radar plot kind of just shows that all of the questions that we asked, most of them were scored as being relatively significant for our customers. Although the initial costs and the availability of home charging incentives seemed to be a little bit lower, though they did say that availability of incentives for the EV itself would be a significant factor. We also asked them if they were satisfied with the availability of charging stations in Truckee, and we received a lot of responses, and it looked like that people wanted charging in their neighborhoods, largely. We asked similar questions regarding perspectives on electrifying appliances. So this data here is for that was collected for space heating and for water heating equipment. What are do they perceive electric heat pumps as being a safe way to heat water or their homes? Is it reliable for heating water or their homes? Will it reduce their energy bills? Will it reduce their greenhouse footprint? And are they interested? Those were the questions that were asked. Again, it was the same scale, 0 being basically a negative opinion, no, this is going to be worse, and 5 being I agree, this is with the statement. It's significant. And the middle of the line, the 2.5, is pretty much kind of like I neither agree or disagree, middle of the road, indecisive. So it can be seen here from the data that the electric technologies were generally perceived as fairly safe, and kind of in the middle of the road on reliability. And we'll kind of follow that up in a second on some of the comments. They were really undecided on its impact on their energy bills. They didn't, for space heating, they kind of came in saying, oh, it's going to be worse, it's going to be more expensive. But for water heating, they thought, no, it's going to be a little bit cheaper. What I'm taking away from that data is that it's just there's not enough. People don't have enough information. They don't know, and it's true. I mean, none of us have a crystal ball. We don't know, what energy costs are going to be 10 years from now. For each of the different energy sources, we have guesses, but and we can make educated assumptions, but there's a lot that is just unknown. People agreed generally that it would reduce their carbon footprint, but not overwhelmingly so. And then people weren't interested, but that one was fairly significant, in terms of their response, more so than some of the others. The most common concern that was stated were that people were worried about the impact of service disruptions on their ability to heat or heat their water or heat their home. Interestingly enough, only 7%, a little over 7% of respondents indicated that a monetary incentive of some sort would affect their decision towards purchasing a heat pump water heater. Okay, 2 more categories. On-site generation, energy storage. We asked about do they have currently on-site generation or storage, and if not, do they plan on purchasing either solar or battery storage in the near future? And 50% of customers came back saying, yeah, we intend to purchase solar panels for our home, and this one jumped out at me, 80% stating that they would install battery backup for their homes. So those are some interesting numbers to chase down. Curious to kind of flesh those out with residents. The data here shown is just I pulled data from our current net metering agreements, and you can see the cumulative trend over time. Our first one was in the year 2000, Y2K. And it's grown quite a bit since then, and we're sitting at about just under 1.7 megawatts of installed solar in our territory. So that's 200, almost 280 projects, and we've got 20 plus in the pipeline right now, and there's continued interest there. Staff are also engaging with sister utilities right now to learn about innovative rooftop solar programs across the state in an effort to help develop, what is going to be our next step, what is in the solar rooftop programming going forward. Finally, we asked about program awareness. What are residents' awareness of and perspectives on our existing rebates and the existing kind of portfolio of rebated measures? What we found was a little underwhelming. People were somewhat unaware. They landed right there in the middle of the road, like 2.7, 2.6. They kind of they were lukewarm with respect to even awareness of the programs or or satisfaction with the available rebates. What was interesting was that following the survey, we suddenly got a massive influx of rebate applications from people that didn't realize that they'd purchased something a year or two ago, and they're like, "Oh, you guys offer a rebate for that?" So we had to gently tell them that it's a little old. We also asked if there would be interest in a time of use rate for our residential customers, and that one actually came in pretty high, 3.4. Out of 5. So that indicates that there was general interest in time of use rate across our residential customers. And this little word plot here on the right, word cloud, we'd asked the customers if they had any recommendations for what we should offer rebate-wise. And so I took all of their words that came through that and and it shows the frequency, what words came in more frequently than other words. I thought that was kind of a cool way to show where people's interests were. All right, so takeaways. One of the takeaways, which might not seem obvious at first, but is certainly important, is that this survey provided us some numeric confirmation of trends that we were already seeing or expecting to see. We needed to have a data-driven, foundation for the designs going forward for our programs in order for these programs to be able to be successful and speak to the needs of our community and also be cost-effective and on mission. And so this survey, while we might have been able to predict some of the trends that we're seeing, the survey brings in confirmation and provides a good foundation for design changes that we can make moving forward. There are certainly energy efficiency opportunities. Energy efficiency is not dead in the community, and I think that one of the big opportunities there are building envelopes, the draftiness, the windows and doors and insulation, and addressing the buildings themselves, the shell of the building. It's not a particularly glorious retrofit. They tend to go unnoticed. Windows are expensive, and that tends to be an upgrade or a maintenance item that gets kicked down the road because the refrigerator is something that is touched every day, and it's much more visible. So there's a lot of opportunity there. It can be seen that there's a lot of opportunity for decarbonization, electrification in the areas of space heating and water heating, with such a high percentage of that end use currently being natural gas. And I think one of the big takeaways for me in the program designs moving forward is that behavior and education are becoming much more prominent in terms of a need. Even if we have these shiny new efficient and wonderful widgets, if people aren't using those correctly or if they're misusing them, then we're just going to cycle back to square one. Electric vehicles are growing. They're here. I mean, anybody who drives around town knows that they see a lot of electric vehicles. But now we have some numbers on those, and we can start seeing the numerical trend moving forward. Equally important, we gained insight on customers' perspectives towards electrification. One of the main barriers is a general anxiety regarding grid grid reliability and service disruption. And as I was looking through the data and kind of chewing on it, it occurred to me that this anxiety is very similar to range anxiety in EVs. It seems like it's kind of the home electrification equivalent to range anxiety. So it might help to approach that in a similar fashion, with our education. A lot of customers reported that they just enjoyed cooking with gas. It was a preference. And they perceive it to be a superior experience. So that actually it's helpful to know, so that we can, when we approach that subject with our programs, we can cater the programs to address that specifically, and not try to convince them that it's better because it something else, some other nerdy specification, or it's cleaner here, or whatever. If they just want the experience, well, let's design a program that shows them that the experience can be similar or better with induction. And then one other interesting takeaway was that customers seem more open to electrifying their water heating than they are open to electrifying their space heating. So that might be a good place to start with changing perceptions and transforming a market. So in terms of real-world impacts on the programs going forward, certainly our programs are ever evolving. But we expect that there's going to be an additional emphasis on behavior and education moving forward. I mentioned earlier that Energy Star appliances are the norm, and that's true for a lot of efficiency widgets these days, whether it's Title 24 or just a general market adoption. That's just what people are buying. It's what the hardware stores are stocking. It is the new baseline, and so the financial incentives for widgets are going to start to be refocused. We're not getting rid of widgets, but they're going to be refocused because, as I mentioned earlier, this data is really good at capturing trends and information for folks that single-family residences that are owned and owner-occupied. It doesn't do as good of a job of representing our income-qualified and disadvantaged community areas in Truckee. And so the expectation is that a lot of the widgets, the widget financing, will still be, in fact, it'll be funneled and be more prominent in that region, that aspect of our community, with the general programs focused more on education awareness. And some examples of some programs that are forthcoming here are a cooking class that we actually piloted in-house here with our in-house professional chef, Pano. And he actually agreed to help put on and teach the cooking aspect of the classes in the community. So the plan is to have cooking classes similar to how we did the community circles, have small cooking classes in different parts of the community. And we've got portable induction cooktops, and Pano has recipes that we can put together on those, and we'll have demonstration to give residents an opportunity to actually cook on it and experience it, again, addressing the experience as opposed to just the technical specifications of it. I'd love to expand our energy audit program. That is a wonderful way to engage with customers. One of the things we did ask is what is the best way that we can engage with you? The numbers, if you remember, were like 2.7. It was right in the middle of the road, lukewarm. People were not generally aware, but they weren't unaware with respect to the programs. We wanted to figure out, okay, how can we drum up that awareness? And so one of the questions we asked is, what's the best way to contact you? What's the best way to communicate with you? And the two, top results there overwhelmingly were email and website, which are modes of communication we already engage in. So we're trying to figure out better ways of engaging them, more creative ways of engaging them. And the energy audit, energy assessment program is a wonderful way to engage with our residential customers, offer them very useful information about their energy use in their home, ways that they can reduce their bills, reduce their energy use, et cetera, and then answer any other questions that they might have, make them aware of anything else that's going on, et cetera. One of the cool things that we've done, and this is not new, but we've continued to partner with SWEP, the Sierra Watershed Education Partnership, and they run classes with the various schools here locally, and their focus is mainly watershed sustainability and stewardship, but they also bring in messaging that we have on conservation and decarbonization as well. And just this last spring, actually, we worked together with them to create a fun game for the kids that was kind of like a combination of Pictionary and telephone and charades, actually. It had kind of components of all three of those. It was really fun to watch. At the end, they were trying to, put together a sentence, kind of like a Mad Lib almost, sort of thing. That was the message that, we wanted them to walk away with. And that was a pretty successful program. I think I've already, mentioned the refocus of the financial incentives towards income qualified customers and equipment that is not going to have high amounts of the term is free ridership, which would be recipients who for whom the rebate didn't actually impact their purchasing decision. So we want to make sure that the money that we spend on these rebates are impacting purchasing decisions. They're accelerating adoption of either energy efficient or clean technologies. And with that, that concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions. I did slip that one.
Steve,
What? It's a half
All right.
slip then.
hey, Steve, getting back to those heat pumps. When I first moved here, that was back in '68. I inquired about heat pumps because of heating and air conditioning. Of course, I only find out that we only have 2.5 weeks of heat in the summer. But anyway, they said that they don't work up here because of the high altitude. Okay, now, there's a few heat pumps in town now, isn't there? And they're working pretty good, or what?
Yeah, heat pump technology has improved considerably, and most of that improvement has been in the last 10 or 15 years. Back in the 70s, and heat pumps are not new. A heat pump is an air conditioner that's run in reverse. Is all it is. Oh. It has a little valve inside of it that allows you to put it in reverse. So you can run it forward, you can run it in reverse. So you're heating the inside of the home, or you're heating the outside, right? An air conditioner is cooling the home by heating the outside, and a heat pump is heating the home by cooling down the outside. That's through the magic of thermodynamics. And previously, all of the effort, all of the money was for air conditioning. That's where all the research, that's where all of the commercial manufacturers were focused on. And heat pumps were, they were adequate. They were great for fairly, temperate environments. Places at least that didn't get particularly cold, because it's not the altitude, it's the temperature. As the outside air temperature gets colder, it's harder to cool it down even more, right? It's harder to suck more heat out of the air that's already particularly cold. And so a heat pump becomes less and less effective. And this is universally true even for current heat pumps. They become less efficient, less effective. They have to work harder as the outside air temperature gets colder and colder. And in the last 10 years or so, manufacturers have started focusing on manufacturing cold weather heat pumps that can actually perform in colder outside air conditions. And one of the considerations with our heat pump program, because we do offer rebates for heat pumps. And one of the things that we review on the applications is that the heat pump that the customer is installing is one that's going to work in our cold temperatures up here, because you can still purchase a heat pump today that's not going to work in Truckey's cold temperatures. You have to make sure that it's appropriate for Truckee, for our cold temperatures. But yeah, heat pumps do work up here.
You used the analogy on water heaters here. They work good on water heaters?
They do, yeah. We have, I think the data showed that we had 2% of our customers have heat pump water heaters. And everybody that I've talked to, just kind of anecdotally, that has a heat pump heater up here, loves it. It performs great. Typically, they're installed in the garage.
But the majority, they use the gas still.
Yeah, the majority of residents have gas hot water heating.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Yeah.
We just ask for public comment. Any public comment on the workshop?
No, Mr. Vice
Thank
President.
you. Krista?
Yeah, that was a lot of information. I did go through the
Yeah.
whole report. And I'd had a lot of the same takeaways that you have. I feel like, as a whole, a big nut for us is simply education. And for that matter, I mean, even, there are a lot, like, a levelized cost comparison between natural gas and electricity for heating your home. I mean, that's really hard to do. And I understand looking forward, it's almost impossible because we can't see the future, but even like now, if, choose a day in the winter and I'm heating my house with natural gas and I'm heating it to the same temperature with a heat pump, how can we do an apples to apples comparison for people with current technology? Yeah, I don't know what the answer to that question is. Would you be saving money or not? I know that, anecdotal, my anecdote, the furnace went out at the poorhouse and I didn't replace it because it's not my property. And so I just started plugging in space heaters. And now, this month, my landlord came and said, the electricity is so expensive for y'all all of a sudden. I'm like, really? That's funny, because the furnace went out way back in March. I was really anxious at that point in time. I'm like, oh, crap, we got no heat. It's not going to replace it. I'm not going to replace it. What's going to, but nothing until, so, it's just very interesting how people perceive it and what is the reality. And I don't know what the answer to that question is. What is the reality? So I would be interested to have some of that information. I would be interested in sharing some of that information with our, customers. And the fact that the connection between, climate change and electricity, what we're using to generate that electricity makes a big difference, right? That's what our portfolio is taking care of, that end of it. We're working on it from that end. But we need much greater uptake in the community. The shift from natural gas to our, right now, 65 to 70% cleaner electricity is huge. And as we increase that portfolio to 80, 90, ultimately 100%, obviously it's incredibly huge. Going from 100% dirty to 100% clean, that's a huge shift. And I think we really do have to focus on educating people about things like reliability and range anxiety. We are a very reliable electric utility. I think people, it's like a hangover from, I'm going to say 20 years ago. Literally, when my daughter was born and I had a newborn, and the electricity did go out for 2 weeks over Christmas. It was rough, and it was, but those days seem to be long gone. We're doing so much vegetation management. We've done so much hardening of our system. We've done that these are things, there's still fear in our head, but the reality of the situation is not that. And the same with driving our vehicles. I mean, range anxiety, we live in Truckee. We're okay, a lot of people live in Reno, and a lot of folks who live in here work in Reno, but that's definitely the wrong direction. So, driving around town, there is no, it's 3 miles from one charger to your house, pretty much no matter where you live. So I really feel like we have a big job of just sort of settling people's fears and reorienting them to a mindset of safety and reliability and abundance. Again, it is definitely less expensive to charge your car than it is to put gas. So the economics of that are really clear cut. That's much easier to see than the economics of your gas stove versus a heat pump. That's not clear at all. So I took the exact same takeaways that you. Could you actually go back to that slide? Yeah.
This one?
This one, that's the one, yeah,
Okay.
just the takeaways for the public programs, because that was essentially where I was. I think what we want to do is to create programs that are going to have impact, particularly, like you said, on people who would not make these decisions without a rebate, without financial help from the PUD. And what are people actually going to do? It seems right now it's an uphill battle to talk about space heating, but we can certainly start with water heaters, right? That's a big area that people seem much less anxious about, either with cost-wise or heating their home. They get anxious that the power's going to go out. So those fears are less when you're talking about water heaters. But we want to lure them away. We want to lure them away from the fossil fuels and this is something that we all do. I mean, I do. I heat my house with gas. I don't even know if I can. Even a mini split, I guess I could do, but I don't even have wall space to to put it on that's not affected by snow shedding on the outside, right? I don't know. It's tricky, and it's on my to-do list, and it's expensive, and it's weird. So, if I feel that way, I know the public feels that way, but I also know it can totally be done. So how do we start? How can we put these carrots together in a way that is going to start helping people make these moves that they are going to have to make? Again, we want them to make these moves before they're forced to make them by the state of California at a minimum. California's got a goal of installing 1 million heat pumps by 2030. It's a lot of heat pumps. It's a lot of heat pumps. But I'm stoked about the induction cook class. I'm going to go. I just got my induction 1 burner delivered, and I have cooked every meal on it since then. And I have to admit it's going to take some practice. I burned rice. It was embarrassing, but there you have it. But it's different. It's different than gas, and I think that kudos to the natural gas companies that they had a great campaign. Now we're cooking with gas. That was very successful, but it's just PR. It's not reality, and we can, we got to start again that road, just luring people away from what they're used to doing because it's not necessarily reality. Battery and solar, I was shocked that many people were planning to put solar panels on still in here in Truckee, where I think that's something that we have seen the attitude change. Like, solar panels don't work here for various reasons. There's the snow load, they're a pain in the neck to clear, whatever, all of the things that people have thought about rooftop solar. And now we're looking at the survey, and half the people are intending to install rooftop solar when they're not being mandated to. And battery backup, which I think speaks to people's reliability concerns. And I think I feel like investing in that would be, a win for everybody. So that was cool. And one thing also about the whole thing, the demographics on this, these were some wealthy, older folks responding to this survey. I wonder, which I think may be a factor in how they want us to communicate with them.
Mm-hmm.
So, I wonder how we get to our younger demographic. I know we have seen a change in this town, and a lot of young folks have come, young, relatively young, meaning under 65, because the bulk of these respondents were over 65 and made over $250,000 a year. That's not, maybe it is, a real but there's a lot more going on in this town than that. I mean, so that is something that I would like to sort of dig around in, because again, those aren't the people that I think need our rebates. That's, that's not, so that I want us to keep that also in mind as we move forward in design programs, because these folks and what their plans and desires are, because those are big ticket items, battery backup and solar panels, and that's what those folks are interested in. But that's not, when you get down to the folks who make $100,000 a year and are in their 40s, maybe for us, it's a little induction good top, and that's the duck bite that we can take to help solve this big problem. So anyway, that was a lot of blah. It's pretty much what you took away as well. Thank you for putting the work in, and now we have somewhere to start. And another thing that crossed my mind, is this something that we can share with the town of Truckee, and we can both design parallel programs that stack on each other and can increase our impact for the programs that we come up with.
Yeah, I'd have to look at making sure that some of the data is. I think the report itself would be fine.
Yeah.
It's public, so that's fine. If it comes down to some of the data itself, that might be a little bit. I'd have to kind of sift through it. And we've already kind of done our first iteration of trying to partner with the town on programs, and that was with the weatherization rebates that we offer, because as I mentioned earlier, our current funds are earmarked for specifically conserving electricity. So customers that have natural gas as their primary heat source are not eligible for those rebates. We still have them, but they're specifically for customers that have electric primary heat. So a very small number of residents actually apply for and receive those rebates. I think we've only had 2 or 3 this year for those rebates. So the partnership with the town was, the town offered to provide the rebate funding for the residents that have natural gas primary heat, and they used our program channels to offer those funds.
Okay.
But I'd
It's a
love to see
start. Yeah.
similar partnerships.
Yeah, it's a start. Also, back to the heat pump functioning as the AC, it goes both ways. We should probably really push that part of it with, this summer's a terrible example, but the summer before and the summer before that, and the heat and the smoke, it was so horrifying. And, if that's our new reality moving forward with the summer months, and it's going to get hotter, 9 degrees by 2050. The sustainability that was a number from the sustainability summit, was that the average daily temperature in the Sierra Nevada will go up by 9 degrees Fahrenheit by 2050. That's quite a bit, especially when we're already having summers in the 90s, which is not what we used to have. So I think getting in the, if you've got to put in air conditioning, you might as well put in a heat pump and take out your gas altogether and start addressing the big. But I think as far as education goes, that's a big educational component, is that heat pump, the name of it is misleading. It is a cool pump as well as a heat pump. So we have a lot of educating to do. We have a lot of it to do. So, and the town can help with that. Something I'm going to bring to the CTA and be like, hey, all of us, every district here can start with the education component of this survey, educating people on the benefits of electrification instead of fearing it. So, yeesh, sheesh.
Steve, heat pumps run with what kind of energy? Is it electricity?
Yeah, it's electricity.
It's electricity that fuels them. Well, you know, our challenge here with Truckee is we have so severe changes in seasons. I mean, it's hot and it's cold.
And that's it.
It's not like Sacramento where it's kind of
Right.
tepid all the time. And what, you think that the heat pumps are the ones that are going to take over? Because I understand in 35, we're doing away with gasoline, supposedly. Does that include natural gas too?
That's anybody's
Any
guess.
type of gas, huh?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, right now, Air Resources Board has made it such that all new car sales will have to be electric by, I think it's 2035. Is that right? 2030?
Yeah, zero emissions.
Zero emissions. Sorry, yeah. And the heat pumps, they work great. And the technology is constantly getting better. They're able to package it smaller, more, and do it cheaper. And you know, it's just going to come down to people getting used to that new technology. You know, if you're anybody who lives down in Sacramento or LA, they're used to the buzz of an air conditioner. Like that's a normal thing to see it at home, to hear around the home. Up here, not so much. And then the considerations for just how do you maintain something like that? How do you use something like that and interface with it with your home? How do you get used to that? It's just there's some behavioral changes that go with it. But as a technology, it works well.
Yeah. So we have heat pumps, solar, electricity naturally, and then gas, natural gas. So we have four entities right now that can supply us with our heating and cooling elements. As of 35 on, 2035.
Well, yeah, it's a little bit different for homes than it is for electric or for transportation for vehicles.
Yeah, vehicles is already automatic. That's electricity.
Yeah, but
The
the
water heaters and furnaces and stuff like that, what is the one to get?
the trends in California, Title 24, which is our state building code, is kind of progressively pushing more rigorous requirements for electrification within homes. So soon, all new construction in residences will have to be pre-wired, even if for an electric vehicle charger, for example. And I believe it's also forthcoming that the homes will have to have circuits pre-wired for electric cooktops, for an induction stove, as well as for water heating. They don't necessarily have to have.
It's gonna be code.
It's going to be code. They're going to have to have it pre-wired. It doesn't have to. They don't have to have the equipment that uses electric. They can have both natural gas and electricity present and use. They can elect to use the natural gas alternative, but the wiring has to be present in the home so that if another occupant wants to come in and switch it all out, they can. It's already there.
You know, this track behind us here, this hill, was supposed to be all electric when they started building this thing here. But it didn't seem to fly. It never flew.
Yeah.
But that time they were using, electricity and oil for heating. They used a lot of oil here. And why it didn't fly, because I think the PUD was, everybody that went with electricity, they were gonna get some kind of a deal on the energy
Yep.
bill. But of course, that was back in the 50s, I think, wasn't that 50s, 40s, late 40s? Early 50s, yeah, in there. So right now, we're gonna be in a change again. So what do you think? What's your opinion?
My opinion on where the change is going?
Yeah, and what to use? Which one do you pick?
Which one to use?
Huh?
I think that the change is definitely trending towards electrification as a cleaner means of providing heat and air conditioning for our homes. Speaking specifically for heating, I am actually gearing up to do a remodel for my home. I'm hoping next summer. And in that remodel process, I will be actually removing my furnace, and I also will be putting in radiant floor heating, which is a much more efficient way of heating a home. But when I do that, I will be putting in it's an air to water heat pump. So I'll be converting my home to a heat pump.
How do you heat the floor? You got a wood floor, say, and cement. If you have cement floor now, you can't add the floor heat, can you? Or is that baseboard you're talking about?
No, I have wood subfloors in my home. It's a raised floor foundation, and I'll be putting it's like a thin board that goes on top of the subfloor that has grooves in it, where you can lay the radiant PEX tubing. It's like a plastic tube, a thin plastic tube that snakes through the floor, and then you put your flooring on top of that, so it heats on top of the floor, and then you just make sure that you got plenty of insulation underneath.
You're remodeling.
Yeah, it's going to be a big remodel.
Yeah.
All right, Joe, any other comments?
No, that's fine.
You good?
Yeah, I got my answer.
Awesome. Okay, just a couple questions. You brought up a good point about Energy Star and how it's just like, it's the norm now. And I guess my question is, has Energy Star actually, is that a sliding scale? Have they increased their thresholds over time to address technology, or they just kind of hit one threshold and stayed there? And, obviously the industry's kind of caught up, and I'm just curious, because it was such a, 10 years ago, it was such a big deal, and now I can't agree more that it's sort of become the norm, and it's like, well, has the norm improved?
Energy Star Plus.
Right. Well, yeah. So they have done some sliding of that scale, but it is largely, Energy Star is kind of the scale.
Yeah.
And the federal and state requirements for appliance efficiencies have not caught up to Energy Star. So Energy Star still represents an incremental improvement beyond what is kind of governmentally required of manufacturers for appliance efficiencies. So in that sense, it's still, above and beyond. But the market has adopted that as its norm. Because they've just done a really good job at marketing and also the utility industry and sustainability advocates have successfully transformed the market over the years to make it the norm.
Right. Range anxiety, it exists, and I don't disagree. If you purchase your car, 95% of your driving is in town, and, to Reno and back, it's, I think you're well equipped to start have an EV, but range anxiety does exist for people who need more transportation range, whether it's for work, whether it's for personal things. And, until this nation builds out their charging network and the state builds out their charging network, it's going to be a reality for people trying to live a normal transportation life in the EV world, because we're not there yet. I couldn't agree more around here. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Plug-in hybrids and full EVs that exist primarily in this town and don't go past Reno, super easy decision. But after that, it gets more complicated. And I think,
wouldn't drive across Nevada.
yeah, well, I think I think, it's that part of range anxiety is being publicized quite frequently now, as publications, put EVs in their long-term fleets. Their goal is to go out and push these vehicles, test them, find out, the good and the bad, and they love them around town, but road trips, you gotta tack on 2 or 3 extra hours. And that's a reality, and unfortunately, we're not to that point yet. So I do think range anxiety does exist for a certain subset.
It definitely exists. So I just
I mean, I think it's
wanted to
real.
calm it. Yeah, you think
Well,
it's legitimate.
I think it's
that
legitimate
it's
in
a
certain
reflection of
areas,
reality.
yeah. But, I couldn't agree more. If your primary goal is to drive around here, I think it's doable. I think, I agree. I think there has to be maybe some idea, and I appreciate you guys trying to partner with the town to maybe open up some of our programs to natural gas heating customers. Just because I think at the end of the day, reducing our carbon footprint is part of our goal. And so I think there is some benefit there. When we were doing our res surveys, were we segregating electric heating versus natural gas heating?
No, our res surveys are made available to all of our customers, and regardless of the heating source. And that's actually one way for us to learn about the kind of the state of homes with and without, electric or gas heat. And when we've rebooted, we've started doing the res surveys again. They started kind of in earnest this last spring, kind of post-COVID. And in this reboot, we've actually started to provide information to customers that have natural gas appliances about available natural gas rebates, so rebates from Southwest Gas, for example, for those natural gas appliances, because we recognize that electrification is expensive, and it might be, out of the means of the customer right now. And so the next best thing is, well, how can we use less natural gas? So we can't get rid of it entirely, but, well, we can get a more efficient natural gas appliance in there.
Yeah, because I thought part of res surveys that they would install weather stripping and some simple things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, post-COVID, so during COVID, certainly we weren't able to do anything, get in there. And following that, we adopted a piece of software that allows us to do it virtually, kind of like a really, really cool FaceTime sort of thing. It allows us to be interactive with them back and forth and take high-resolution pictures and whatnot. That was with the expectation that the majority of homes we weren't going to be able to go into. We didn't know when we were going to be able to go into homes, and when we could, how many of them would want us to go in. So it was set up that way, and then we put together energy efficiency kits for them. So after the survey, they receive the survey report, and then they can come in and pick up a kit that has the weather stripping. It has some low flow shower heads, items that we identified during the survey that would be useful for them.
Okay. No, and I think, education is key. I think there's a lot to be learned from, the idea of not the cooking class itself, but the idea behind the cooking class. While they call it range anxiety or call it reliability anxiety, or, I think at the end of the day, there are examples of successful heat pumps in this community that are working and functioning, whether it's air to air or air to water. I think somehow we need to try and promote that, those ideas and how to get people to understand that. As far as our electric reliability, it's always, the crystal ball is always difficult because one particular series of storms and temperatures and wind and all that can take our whole vegetation management program and flip it on its head. So, but, if there's a way to talk about reliability and talk about our improved reliability, while we can never say it's going to be perfect, we can say it's better. And then the last thing is I do believe that, I think batteries, whether it's batteries alone or batteries and solar combined, I think we saw a glimpse that there's something there.
I don't know about batteries, though.
Well, you have to think about it like a generator, right?
Yeah, but I think they'd be expensive and they have to be replaceable.
They are expensive,
Well, I
but
think
so
there's
is
quite
a
a bit-
generator. But at the end of the day, I think batteries give you some flexibility with other sources such as solar, and buy you time so that when you are concerned about reliability of the electric grid, you can ease your mind a bit to have maybe a day's worth of storage.
Backup.
Yeah.
Just a day. Yeah.
But it gives you a day to prepare.
And most outages don't last that
Right,
long. I
right,
mean, it
right.
does happen, but.
So I definitely see, I think heat pumps are, but, there's obviously the physics of heat pumps has people concerned because of our temperatures in the wintertime. So examples of successful heat pumps, promoting batteries and solar, I think is a great, so batteries and/or batteries and solar, I think is a great tool. Because I think people are understanding that they can purchase an EV, charge their car at home with their solar and their battery, and save money, and have the effect of reducing their carbon footprint. So I think there's a window there that we can definitely start looking into. But this is all great information. Wish the demographics, demographics. I'm curiously interested to find out how, I would assume these types of surveys people would take the younger crowd would take interest in this.
I know.
More
that's-
than the older demographics. But maybe it's just the opposite. The younger crowd is not as interested in spending their time doing that survey as they are doing other things.
Maybe busy, yeah.
So I don't know how to break that wall, because I think it's important, and I think we would start to glean more clarity on sort of the future.
I absolutely agree with that, 100%. I think that's a tough nut to crack.
Yeah, I mean, the data is hugely valuable, and I'm not discounting the data at all and who participated. I just think that there's another window that hasn't been opened yet. So, awesome, thank you.
Just a couple more,
Oh,
sorry, I always have it. The talking about opportunity, like rebates or other financial tools, is this a conversation that we should have during the rates workshop? Or is this a conversation that I should, I'm like thinking about things like a heat pump, which is a big investment. And instead of a rebate, if we could do a very low or no interest loan, which is how Southwest got into my house, was when they put them in, they financed a loan and we paid it back over the next 5 years and whatever, and here we are. If we could do the same sorts of thing, it's not a rebate, but it's they pay it back through paying off their bill, right? So things to think about that might be able to benefit folks who make less money than $250,000 a year. Because I think a big thing that I think it's important, again, for us to sort of empower all of our constituents to be able to participate actively in, climate solutions, right? So not everybody is going to be able to buy an EV or a battery or solar panels or heat pumps. Those are all things that cost tens of thousands of dollars, the least probably battery backup is like $7,000, or a mini splint heat pump, $10,000. They're expensive, they're big ticket items at the moment. But even for the folks that can't do any of those things, they could still do an induction cooktop, for example, or an electric water heater, for example, or even, electric heat pump dryers, which they're so cute and weird. But there are things, I just want things to be available at every level to help, because people hate feeling helpless. That it's really frustrating when you've done all these things around your home or in your life, we cut back on eating meat and we walk and ride our bikes but we're limited for what we can, think of as the bigger steps because of finances, because we don't have money. People who have money can do all of these things, and people don't have money get, left out of all of these things. So I want us to be able to create programs that will benefit folks at every level and that may not look like a rebate. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Good point. All right,
Now I'm done. So I'm sorry.
all right, I think we're done.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Steve.
Stephen. Yeah, that was a lot of talking
I'll
for you.
work in
Thank
it.
you.
How long did it take to do that survey?
A big survey.
The survey was put out there for, I think, 2 or 3 weeks
Oh,
to garner the response.
I thought it ran into some months, a month or so.
Oh, sorry.
Well, it's not too bad then, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah, the survey itself was available to customers for about 2 or 3 weeks to collect the data. It took about a month or two, I think, to go back and forth with the consultant to develop the survey instrument itself, and then it's been about another month or
Because we
two.
had good feedback then. Pretty quick.
Yeah, it was relatively quick to get the response. In fact, it was fairly quicker than expected to get that response rate. And 10% was considered a good response rate for a survey of that nature.
Thank you again.
All right, let's move on to routine business. Item 11, approve the treasurer's report for October 2023.
Oh, Michael's on.
Any public comment on the treasurer's report?
No, Mr. Vice President.
Any board discussion?
I'm good. Would you like to make a motion to approve to pay the bills?
Well, let me ask Michael a question. It seems like I did a little figuring here, and we took in like 5,400,000, I think it was, yeah. And we sent out 6,800,000. And are you kind of worried about that, or what happens in the meantime? How many years can we go like this, or months? That's $1.3 million difference from the disbursements and the receipts.
Yes. So disbursements were greater than receipts this month, in the report month, and that is common in certain times of the year. So every month is different. And when we have a significant outflow, particularly when we mention things like the capital projects that are ongoing, so in the summer months, we're spending funds that we planned on spending. So we budget annually, and things are on track for budget. So
Okay.
I'm not worried, and I don't think you should be worried, but it's a good question for sure. And that would not be sustainable if it was like that every month,
The
for
difference,
sure.
the difference comes out of the balance of the general fund net, because we have 16 million in there now.
That's correct.
So if we have to pay a little bit more, it just comes out of the fund, and, but that's why
Well-
it's budgeted that way.
And we are also utilizing the bond proceeds from the debt issuance last year. So those funds we're drawing down from that bucket of funds, which is not commingled with the general fund funds. But as we expend the debt proceeds from last year when we issued the water COP debt, we are reimbursing the general fund for those expenditures.
Oh, good,
So
good.
we have that covered.
All right, well, Mr. President, I'll move to approve the report and pay the bills.
All right.
I will second that motion.
All right, motion and a
already
second. Shauna, roll call, please.
Director Aguirre?
Yes,
Director Finn?
since I made the
Yes.
motion.
Vice President Malauulu?
Yes.
I guess
The
I better
record will
okay it.
reflect that President Bender and Director Harris are absent.
All right, item 12, approve minutes of September 6 and September 20 board meetings. Any public comment?
No, sir.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for September 6th, September 20th board meetings.
Second,
All right. Shauna, roll call?
I didn't read it.
Director Aguirre?
Did you see Aguirre? Yes.
Director Finn?
Yes.
Vice President Malauulu?
Yes.
The record will reflect that President Bender and Director Harris are absent.
Okay, well, now we will go back to item 5, public comment. And I will once again open up public comments. Time set
Number
aside for
5?
the public to address the board on any matter not on the agenda. Testimony related to any agendized matter should be addressed at the time that the item is considered.
Vice President Malauulu, there is no public comment.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, then I believe we are adjourned.
I move to adjourn.
Well done. Thank you.
Oh,
Thanks for
good,
running the
fine.
meeting.
Well, for three members, that's not too bad.
That's not too bad.
We have the good ones.
Don't go spreading that.